And we begin part 2 with some ominous silhouetted figures talking. And apparently, I haven't actually read it, but I've heard that the manga based on this game has an absolutely hilarious line that makes fun of this convention. But anyway, you'll find out who these guys are in just a little bit, although it's pretty easy to guess. So they're talking about a game and players. And Reapers, it seems. It's kind of a no-brainer to say that these guys are working for whoever sent Neku that phone message. Meanwhile, at the statue of Pachinko, which is a real place, by the way. In fact, every area in this game is based on a real place. Yeah, things just keep getting creepier around here. The music track playing here is simply called For Bone. Pretty aptly named, I think. Packed? Noise? Erased? So much terminology here. Now, I find this scene quite interesting because at this point, the player is pretty much just as confused as Neku. It's basically like, packed? Okay. And right now, we'll finally be getting our first attack. So, cue combat tutorial number 2.
Watch yourself.
Now, here's our first attack, Pyrokinesis. It's quite simple. Draw a line on the touchscreen to create fire. Against a single enemy, it's usually simple enough just to keep holding down on one spot. Of course, here we have multiple enemies, so we'll need to be a bit smarter with our use of this. Now, this is also a tutorial for. You'll notice that little bar below the image of the pin there. Basically, attacks in this game only have a certain amount of uses before they need to reboot, as the top screen says here. And yeah, you'll see the circles going around, and now it's rebooted and ready to use again. That's one of the key gameplay mechanics here. Fairly simple, but it's a bit annoying at this point when you only have one attack, and so you're basically defenseless while it's rebooting. Later on, you'll be able to use multiple pins, as she says, at one time. Yep, Sykes. Essentially, the combat in this world works by characters wearing pins that activate certain psychic powers. And yes, introducing himself, this is Shiki. You know, Neku, people don't like it when you call them whack. Finally we find out what's going on here. Of course, Neku still has absolutely no idea. And, well, yeah, that's basically the general gist of the story in this game. Okay, in a nutshell, it's basically this. First, you're completely confused. Everything makes absolutely no sense. Then, you watch it for a little while, and suddenly things start to make sense. You know, like from what he's saying here. Then, something else happens, and it gets even more confusing. And then it makes sense again. And then it gets even more confusing. And so on until the very end. So, you know, typical of the guys who made Kingdom Hearts. So yeah, of course, that's the player pin. It shows that, you know, you're a player in the game, and there's that creepy timer again. Now, speaking of the timer is for pure story purposes. you don't actually have a time limit in-game. In fact, in-game, you can take as long as you like to complete the missions. Yeah, being attacked by random frogs, someone running up and demanding to forge a pact, people getting erased, creating fire out of thin air. Yeah, that's what I call a weird day. Right, let's move on and... oh. Or not. Alright, now this is a typical feature of the Reaper's game. Walls. Get used to this. A large portion of the gameplay in missions relies on clearing walls. Of course, this one got open pretty easily. Later on in the game, you won't be as lucky as this.
Huh?
If you're observant, you'll see that guy in red was there since the beginning of this day. Oh, that was a simple mission. Just had to get here. Well, of course, what do you expect from the first day?
What?
Of course. Things aren't going to be so easy. Now, we've learned how to fight, how to move Neku, how to fight with Neku. And now, we learn how to fight with his partner. And here's where we hit a bit of a learning curve. Well, actually that's an understatement. It's more like a learning mountain. I'll try and explain this as best I can, but yeah, read that if you want more info. Leaving that up for a while to give people time to read it. Basically, Shiki is fixed in one place and attacks by pressing directions on the D-pad or the A, B, X and Y buttons. So basically, you want to be attacking as much as possible. And remember, you are controlling Neku at the same time, and, as it says here, you both share the same HP. So, you can't afford to take too much damage on either screen. Of course, you can let the AI control your partner, which you probably have to do early on. Now, a feature you'll notice here is the light puck. The light puck is a pretty nice feature as it pretty much shows you which screen you need to focus on. Every time one character lands a combo, they'll pass the light puck to the character on the opposite screen. If you land a combo after having the light puck, you'll get an attack multiplier. So basically, it's a way of telling what screen you need to focus on. So if you're a beginner, it's generally best to follow the light puck and just focus on controlling whoever has it. Right, now, mini-boss time. We go from fighting frogs to fighting a giant bear. Although, don't be intimidated. If anything, this guy is actually easier than the frogs because his huge size makes him easier to hit. Now, I'm trying to get in a couple of extra combos with Shiki here. I showed you use different directions to navigate through the combo map. That won't become important until a bit later. Now, just experiment all you like here. At this point, you can't actually die. So, if you're a new player, I'd recommend just playing around with these battles until you get used to the controls. Right, you've got some items there. I'll explain about those later. Oh, the missions are going to get harder. So, 6 days to go. Stuck in a lethal game where failure means you're erased from existence. This is The World Ends With You. See you in the next day.